Tonight's meeting of the Waynesboro City Council. Mr. Allen, would you lead us to the pledge of allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you everyone out here tonight for joining us on our council night. For those in attendance, if you wish to speak, there's a sign-in sheet where you first come in, the doors there in the back. You can sign up for either the public hearing or citizen comment period. Please make sure you use the appropriate sheet for signing up. And is this being televised?
Being televised, but we do not have call.
Okay, tonight we don't have public call-in, so if you wish to speak, you have to be present to speak tonight. That brings us to item number 3. Item number 3 is to adopt the agenda meeting. And item number 10, the applicant has requested that the final consideration be tabled for this meeting. Is there a motion to amend the agenda table and request? Is there a motion to amend and table this at the applicant's request until our next meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Short. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Then also on the consent agenda, it is my recommendation that we postpone further consideration of the proposed amendments to chapter to the animal, what is that? 14. Chapter 14. Chapter 14 until our January meeting. And the reason we're doing this is to give us more time to review it. They just printed it this week and we haven't had a chance to go through it. So we're going to go through it and we're going to have a work session on this before our January meeting. So is there a motion to table, postpone this amendment for chapter 14?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstadter. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all very much. Now, do we have a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda?
The rest of the agenda. Not the consent agenda.
Not the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda, meeting agenda for tonight? Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstadter. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. And then the next item is item number 4, matters from the mayor. And I've got one thing tonight that I would like to present, and it's an award to one of our police officers in town. In the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police Foundation 2021 Award for Life Saving is presented to Officer Rebecca E. Shuey of Waynesboro Police Department. The reason she's getting this award is Officer Shuey was awarded this as a remarkable intervention for a woman in crisis. On December 20, 2020, Officer Shuey responded to a call for a woman in distress on Rosser Avenue Bridge who was reportedly planning to jump from the overpass 17 feet to the 4-lane highway below. Upon arrival, Officer Shuey located the woman on the bridge and outside of the safety rail preparing to jump. Officer Shuey carefully made contact with the woman and quickly established rapport with her. Using her CIT skills, the officer was able to safely close the distance between the woman and her and put herself into a position where she could help the woman to safety. The woman was ultimately transported to Augusta Medical, where she received needed care. Officer Shuey's quick thinking, coupled with her skills applied this situation, undoubtedly saved the woman's life. Officer Shuey's patience and emphatic communication with the ultimately physically pulling the individual to safety while risking her own safety warranted her nomination by the Waynesboro Police Department. We are grateful that the VACP for acknowledging Officer Shuey and are grateful and appreciative of Officer Shuey's heroic services. Officer Shuey, can I meet you up front here? Right. Officer Shuey, on behalf of the Waynesboro, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's all that I have. Any matters from my fellow councilmen for tonight? Dr. Sam, I know you got something for us.
Waynesboro's COVID numbers have returned back to levels that are a little more reasonable. Again, I think I mentioned last time there was sort of a statistical bump. The microphone a little closer. There's a statistical bump. There was, I think, reclassification of cases from other places that must have had wrong addresses or something incorrect. For the last 7 days, we have had an average of 7 positive cases a day. That's not 0, but that's much lower than it had been. So that's good news. I will note that we marked now 44 deaths from COVID in the city of Waynesboro. That has slowly crept up over the last few weeks. Again, I think there may have been a couple that were reclassified at one point. So we're not through this yet, but we certainly have calmed down from where we were in mid-September. And I think people are, again, taking it very seriously. Our vaccination rates continue to rise slowly. As of today's numbers on the Virginia Department of Health website, of all adults in the city, we are now at 74.1% with at least 1 vaccination. The population, we're at 60.5%. But again, that includes children heretofore that have not been able to be vaccinated. And as you may have seen in the news, that is changing. That they're going to be likely making further announcements this week about children ages 5 and up being able to get vaccinated. So hopefully those numbers will start to increase as that population develops. So again, we certainly turned the corner where we were in mid-September. But I hope people continue to take it seriously. If you have not gotten the vaccine, talk to your healthcare providers. I'm sure they'll be able to help you answer questions or concerns and direct you in the direction to get those vaccines. But thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Hosser. And that was the 74.1%. Was that for the city of Waynesboro?
That's for the city of Waynesboro for at least 1 vaccine. Fully vaccinated, 68.3%.
And those are up from the last time you gave a report, so that's good. That's good news. Thank you very much. Anyone else have anything? All right. So now item number 6 is to approve the consent agenda. Do we have a motion? Has everybody had a chance to review the consent agenda? Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, Mr. Shore. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all very much. And then the next is item number 7. And I would like to invite Dr. Laura Carnegie and Gary Kaiser to come to the podium. And Mr. Hemp, I believe you're going to talk about this.
Sure. So we're going to allow Dr. Carnegie to present some information, acknowledging some service, and present some information about the COVID pandemic. And then we have an item after that as well. So Dr. Carnegie, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes to talk today. Dr. Hostetter did a great job with reviewing a lot of the statistics related to COVID in Waynesboro. As he said, luckily, as with the other localities in our district, that statewide cases are going down. Those large spikes that you see, as he pointed out, were basically data changes from city to county. So all of those cases didn't occur on those days that it was corrected. So there's a nice downward trend in cases over the course of time. This is a local community transmission map that the schools use, and as you can see, most of Virginia remains red with high community transmission. However, the numbers again are improving, and hopefully over the coming weeks, that map will be a little more multicolored and hopefully getting down into the orange, yellow, and blue ranges. This is our internal epidemiologic curve. You can see towards the right that latest Delta surge, and you can see the nice decline in cases over the course of time. That big peak in the middle was last winter, basically following the holidays. So we had a much more sustained increase in cases that came down, and we had, as you can see, a nice lull in the spring and summer, and then the current Delta surge. Hopefully, if we continue with vaccines, which are going to be our best medical countermeasure, we'll continue to look good in terms of cases in the district. The Virginia Hospital and Healthcare Association recently put out a plea in September, basically imploring people to get vaccinated. That's really what's going to get us to the other side of this pandemic. This is a curve that shows the impact of cases on fully vaccinated people versus partially vaccinated people versus unvaccinated folks. You can see the large yellow curve is people who are unvaccinated. The middle blue curve is people who are partially vaccinated, and that low curve is people who are fully vaccinated. So people who are unvaccinated are about 5.6 times risk of getting COVID versus fully vaccinated, and about 2.3 times the risk of partially vaccinated people. Again, vaccines work, and we urge people to take advantage of that. This shows the breakthrough cases since January. For COVID-19, about 0.8% of people who've been vaccinated have had breakthrough cases, and much less than 1% of people who are fully vaccinated and get COVID are either hospitalized or die from the disease. So the vaccines do exactly what we want them to do. They prevent hospitalizations, prevent death. These are a curve of COVID-19 hospitalizations. You can see to the right that peak follows the Delta peak, but it's going down. In contrast to the hospitalization trends in the wintertime, we've seen younger ages being hospitalized. We've also seen higher acuity. Those kind of orange and red curves at the bottom are ICU hospitalizations and ventilator hospitalizations, and a little bit higher than what we've seen with the previous surge. So again, younger people being hospitalized, more acuity, again, great reasons to get vaccinated. These are our vaccine demographics, and as Dr. Hostetter pointed out, City of Waynesboro is doing quite well with vaccines. We're especially pleased with the folks age 65 and up who have over 96% uptake with at least one vaccine. These are the fully vaccinated folks, a little smaller than the one vaccine cohort, but again, with our greater than 65 plus folks, over 91%, and well over 65% in the other age groups who are vaccine eligible, so that's great. We're in active planning phase for 5 to 11-year-old vaccines, which are anticipated to be ready to be distributed probably the first week in November. This looks at some of the race and ethnicity data, and much like other areas in the district, we have lower uptake in our Black populations and also our Latinx populations. So we're making efforts to increase uptake in those two demographics. What I really came here tonight was not only to reflect on how we're doing with COVID, but also reflect on all the enormous efforts that locality partners have played for public health. We could not have done this unilaterally. This was a total team effort. And one of the biggest team players in your locality, you're probably well aware of this, is Gary Kreitzer. He's been an incredible public health partner, been working with us tirelessly for over a year and a half. He brings to the table incredible experience, and also, the fact that he's on the Board of Health, which brings a lot of statewide perspective to the job that he does locally. One of the things that I think Harry did and kind of knocked out of the park was established right from the get-go, really a public-private partnership that helped with efforts throughout the Stanton, Augusta, Waynesboro region related to COVID-19. And I think that group is going to continue to do great things in terms of public health and community needs going forward. I can't say enough about the tremendous work that he's done, and we wanted to take this opportunity to just give him a certificate of recognition from Central Shenandoah Health District for all of the work that he's done throughout the pandemic.
So, Dr. Cornegie, before you sit down, and Gary, before you approach the microphone, coincidentally, the city of Waynesboro and the city council wish to acknowledge your service, not just through the pandemic period, but over the course of your career in directing the Central Shenandoah Health District. So the council will permit, I'll read the resolution of recognition. Whereas Dr. Laura Cornegie, MD, has served as the director of the Virginia Department of Health Central Shenandoah Health District since 2015. And whereas Dr. Cornegie has strived throughout her tenure to develop strong relationships and partnerships with local government, school systems, healthcare systems, and other community organizations and agencies. And whereas Dr. Cornegie and the CSHD staff has conducted planning, training, and exercises with regional partners such as vaccination point of dispensing training and pandemic influenza exercises. And whereas Dr. Carnegie throughout the pandemic has made herself consistently available for consultation on issues related to exposure, isolation, quarantine, vaccinations, surge, and many other issues related to the pandemic. And whereas Dr. Carnegie's leadership and direction throughout the COVID-19 pandemic has been exemplary and critical to addressing the many issues that the COVID pandemic has created. Whereas Dr. Carnegie is a graduate of the University of Virginia School of Medicine and is board certified in internal medicine and holds a Master of Public Health degree. Spent 25 years in private practice and academics and is a veteran of the United States Navy, where she served as a physician. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the City of Waynesboro does hereby recognize Dr. Laura Carnegie, MD, for her service to the City of Waynesboro and the Central Shenandoah Health District and wishes her well on her pending retirement. In witness hereof, Bobby Henderson, Mayor, does hereby set his hand and cause the seal of Waynesboro to be affixed this 25th day of October, 2021. Gary, would you want to furnish brief remarks as a companion to that?
Well, I've never been brief, but I'll try. So, just to echo the recognition from council, Dr. Carnegie has been a wonderful partner throughout the last 18 months or so. No matter what time of day, what day of week that we needed her, she was available for consultation to help guide and direct everything from isolation and quarantine, exposure. She's just been stellar. And prior to that, building the partnerships in advance of the pandemic, she's just been exceptional. She mentioned the public-private partnership, and while I certainly am humbled to have received recognition from the health district, this has been a team effort, and she was as much a part of that as I've been. She's just, we're going to miss her dearly. She's been a wonderful, again, partner to our local governments and to our region, and we just thank you so much.
Let me put myself back together. All right. Following with this, is there a motion to adopt a resolution acknowledging Dr. Carnegie's service to the Central Virginia Health District?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstadter. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Shore. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Dr. Carnegie, thank you very much for all your service to our community. And Gary, thank you very much for all that you did to get us through COVID. We got a great team here, and I appreciate all of your hard work. And it also helps to have Dr. Sam on our council to keep us up to date. So thank you all very much. Item number eight is to receive a report from the Commissioner of Revenue regarding the accreditation of the registrar, her office, the Revenue's office.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Last week at our 102nd Commissioner of Revenue Association, the Commissioner of Revenue's office for the city of Waynesboro received full accreditation. I would like to take this moment just to express my sincerest appreciation to council for your honoring of the hard work that the staff of the Commissioner of Revenue's office has done to reach this accomplishment. Receiving full accreditation from the Virginia Commissioner of the Revenues Association was by no means an easy task. The 5-member team in our office spent many months to fulfill what was required to meet the criteria set forth by the association's evaluators. While the Commissioner's office staff has long held a reputation of professionalism, highly trained, ethical, and superior customer servants, the distinction of being deemed an accredited office by our peers solidified what my staff and I set forth to achieve. As an elected official, my staff and I have a responsibility to the voters. With their Commissioner of the Revenue's office being fully accredited, I feel that they, the citizens, are the true recipients of this award. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the hardworking deputy commissioners whose combined 24 years of dedicated service to the citizens of Waynesboro helped make this award possible. My staff include Chris Musera, Sharon Mason Cup, Kimberly Bradley, and Betty Richardson. Thank you, Mayor Henderson, and the members of City Council for all of your support.
Thank you, ma'am. Reaching accreditation is a big part of that office. Our police department's accredited, and when an agency takes the initiative to go forward, that says a lot for the staff in that office to push it forward and get the job done. So thank you all very much for your hard work. And that brings us to item number 9. Item number 9 is to hold a public hearing and consider introducing an ordinance rezoning parcels east of North Popular Avenue along North Avenue, Ohio Street, and New Hope Road from highway business to local business. Mr. Juday.
Should be open already. Nick, can you start the slideshow? Bottom right.
Come over here. Keep coming over. Slideshow.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We have one public hearing tonight for rezoning portions of North Avenue New Hope Road and Ohio Street from the HB Highway Business District to the LB Local Business District. This is a little bit different than most of the rezonings that you all see in that it's a planning commission initiated rezoning. Rezonings in the city of Waynesboro can be initiated by either an applicant who's a property owner who wants their property rezoned, or they can be initiated at the city's request by the city council or by the planning commission. So the planning commission in this case wanted to pursue this rezoning. The location is in the center of the city, just north of Broad Street, between Broad and Poplar. And the parcels involved are mostly along New Hope Road and several adjacent streets. The parcels involved are almost entirely residential. They're mostly single-family homes. And they're surrounded by a number of commercial uses on Poplar Avenue, as well as the Walmart area down on Broad Street, and then Willow Oak Plaza to the east, and then this railroad track running up the center. There are mostly smaller single-family homes, and there's a couple of duplexes as well. The current zoning of this entire area is HB Highway Business. The Highway Business District is meant for heavy-duty commercial. It's along major corridors. Most of our Highway Business District zoning is along 4-lane corridors. It's meant to cater to high-traffic retail uses, things like big box stores and so forth. This whole area was zoned HB several decades ago, sort of with the thought that eventually a lot of these neighborhoods would, as the homes got older, people would sell them off and there would be more commercial developed. As I've said to you many times in the past, we don't see as much commercial development anymore. And additionally, when you have a neighborhood of single-family homes, it's cut up into smaller lots. Those have a lot of staying power. So I think it's very increasingly unlikely that these homes will be sold and redeveloped for commercial purposes. Meanwhile, that Highway Business District zoning does prevent those, cause some trouble for those homes, in that the HB zone does not allow any kind of residential uses. Like I said, it allows for all kinds of commercial uses. And it's generally for parcels that are fronting on a major arterial or highway, but it doesn't allow for any kind of residential except for upper story residential in a mixed-use building. We're proposing to rezone these parcels to LB local business. Now, this will still allow them to have some commercial uses, so there's not a massive entitlement being lost. It won't allow some of the really heavy-duty commercial uses, but it will allow for smaller scale, lower intensity stores and other commercial uses. But it also allows a lot of residential uses by right, including single-family detached duplexes and quarter-lot duplexes. LB is a downzoning, so it has a lower demand on public services, transportation, and utilities. The main reason that the Planning Commission has initiated this rezoning is that the zoning in this area doesn't match the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan shows this area as being medium-density residential, and this came to their attention when the recent Red Brick House rezoning came through, which was also to local business. And so this is to sort of extend that local business district further up towards Poplar. Having it be zoned highway business currently creates a number of problems for the owners, mainly that they have occasional trouble obtaining financing because their uses are grandfathered. They're not allowed by right. So often the bank will not want to lend to a use that can't be rebuilt in the event that there was a home burned down and wasn't rebuilt immediately, or it became vacant for several years. If you had a property go vacant and then 2 years later the owner wanted to sell it as a home and fix it up, they would not be allowed to do that under the current zoning ordinance. And again, as I said, it conflicts with the comprehensive plan designation. Additionally, all of these roads are narrower than our ordinance recommends for new streets. These are sort of substandard city streets. And they're also often kind of the main drag where you expect highway business to be really marketable. So I think we have a situation here where the zoning is inhibiting these areas from being what they could be. It's inhibiting the current owners from using their properties as they would like to. And it also is not really a realistic use that the zoning is predicting for this area. So that we're proposing to rezone these parcels to LB. This will be consistent with the Red Brick House rezoning, which was also LB right here. And we'll create a larger LB district here. So all these homes will become by right uses, which should make it easier for them to obtain financing in the future and to be reinvested in. And it will also reduce what could possibly be built here in the future on these roads that aren't necessarily meant to accommodate that kind of traffic. Again, this is our comprehensive plan land use map, which shows this area as medium density residential. That map also shows medium density residential along Poplar Avenue. We would recommend not pursuing a rezoning of that area at this time since there are viable commercial uses there. And that may be something that we want to reconsider the next time that the comprehensive plan land use map is looked at. Again, this is not part of any kind of proposed change of use or new project. There's nothing that's planned to be built. There's not going to be any change that you're going to see, nothing getting torn down or built out there. It's just something that's being done to try to make sure that these property owners are able to invest in their homes and take care of them over the long run. No anticipated impacts on traffic. All utilities are present. And as I mentioned, this is a down zoning. The Planning Commission recommends approval of this rezoning on a 6-0 vote. Since it addresses the non-conforming residential uses currently present there and brings the subject parcels into line with the comprehensive plan. And long-term, again, when we reconsider the land use map, we may want to reconsider some of the other parcels along Poplar and whether those should be more of a commercial designation. Does council have any questions?
Any questions?
Just want to, I think you've sort of addressed it with Untitled. I assume there's nobody, I assume there's no one that would be non-conforming after
No.
the rezoning. There's nobody that's currently using any.
Yeah. I believe all of the parcels involved in this rezoning are currently non-conforming and will become conforming after this rezoning. And I know that we don't have any parcels that will become non-conforming.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. I hereby open the public hearing.
So no one has signed up to speak.
No one has signed up, that's correct. I hereby close the public hearing. Is there a motion to introduce the ordinance? The rezone. Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. And then this motion will be carried over till our November 8th meeting. Item number 10 has been tabled at the request of the petitioner. Item number 11 has been postponed. Item number 12 is to consider introducing an ordinance, the following appropriation ordinances. An ordinance appropriating $124,589 in community service block grant CARES funding and $277,693 in funding from the Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Social Services to the Community Action Partnership of Stanton, Augusta, Waynesboro, also known as CAPSAW. The second, B, and we can vote on all three of these at the same time. B is $10,000 from Virginia Tourism Corporation to the general fund, and C is $2,000 donation from SOCA to the general fund. Mr. McCormick, there he sits.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I don't have a whole lot to add to that. That was a good summary. The main item is item A, which is appropriation of funds to what we generally refer to as CAPSAW. The reason that's necessary is any amendments to their budget. We're their fiscal agent, so any amendments to their budget has to come through ordinance by council. It's for CARES funds that they were awarded through a community service, or as part of the community service block grant. It's through the CARES program. In the amount of $124,589 and $277,693 from the Virginia Department of Social Services, and that's part of the regular funding. The second item is a grant received by the Tourism Department, and it's to continue the Experience Waynesboro campaign, and it does not require any local match. And then the final one is a $2,000 donation from SOCA for some agriculture and maintenance at Richard Park, the soccer fields. And the main thing being these ordinances that can be introduced and adopted this evening, and they can all be done in one motion if council desires.
Thank you, Mr. McCormick. Any questions for Mr. McCormick on that? Okay. Is there a motion to approve this amendment? Pardon? You'll make that motion. Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Hofstetter. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all very much. That brings us to item number 13, communications, correspondence, and calendar. Mr. Ham.
Yes, sir. I have a number of things this evening that I'd like to bring to council's attention. Excuse me. The first two relate to street closures. On November 13th, from 1 p.m. until 7 p.m., we'll be closing a section of Race Avenue from Short Street about mid-block, and this is in association with a special events application for an event at the Blue Ridge Children's Museum on that day. So that's November 13th from 1 to 7, about a mid-block closure of Race from Short to mid-block. And then secondly, on December 4th, we'll have the city's Christmas parade, and absent objection from the council, I'll be affecting the associated road closures traditionally with that event as well. In recent meetings, we've had occasions to either table items or reschedule items for a variety of reasons. Sometimes that's attributable to attendance. And I think in order to facilitate the work of council and communication between the manager and council, and to kind of smooth that work as we develop agenda items and prepare the formal work in regular business meetings for council, but it might be helpful to spend part of the time under this section communicating in advance what is likely to show up on an agenda. I don't want to communicate that these are absolute agenda items, but it'll give the council some sense, and the public to a certain extent, of what's coming in the near future. So we meet in November on the 8th and the 22nd. If members of council know they will be absent, I would ask that they communicate that to the clerk. I know that sometimes absences occur with short notice, but if you have a scheduled conflict and you know in advance, it would be helpful as we plan agenda items and also schedule public hearings. Our goal as a staff is to hold public hearings on dates on which we will maximize attendance and afford the fullest consideration of those items on part of the council. On the 8th, I would expect that we will hear an update on the city's MS4 program. We will also have a public hearing about contemplated changes to the charter, several of which relate to changes in election laws at the state level, and several relate to initiatives that originate with the council concerning charter officials. Additionally, you'll receive an update and be asked to take action regarding the opioid settlement. That's a national issue, but there's also settlements occurring in the Commonwealth of Virginia. You may recall that years ago, the council elected that the city would participate in that, and our city attorney has an update and an action item related to that, and we're planning to do that on the 8th. Additionally, on the 8th, we'll have updates from our public safety offices. Please note as well that we'll resume pre-meeting work sessions. That's an opportunity for the council to sort of get a preview of the items on the agenda for the evening, but also for staff to bring issues that are in the hopper, so to speak, or in the queue that might require a little bit of informal introduction before it arrives on the formal agenda for council's consideration. Then on the 22nd of November, we have another rezoning, amendments to the noise ordinance. We expect as well to present some information regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funds and a concept, largely a concept plan for how we might move forward, or how we would recommend as staff that we move forward as a community with those resources. And then we have an item that's out there that requires some guidance and consideration on the part of the council, and that's phase 3 of the Greenway. Staff is developing some information to present to the council, and so update you on the status of that and seek your guidance, probably on November the 22nd. That's those are the big items that I have personally. Last meeting, we had citizen comment about homeless and vagrancy concerns in portions of the city. So Captain J.W. Oliver from the Waynesboro Police Department is going to speak to the council and provide an update on efforts on the part that the department is undertaking, not just with that specific concern, but generally, because those concerns are not unique to the particular geography or location that we heard about most last meeting. So JW, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First thing I'd like to say is being clarified is, you know, homeless people are just like everyone else. We treat everyone as individuals. So if someone is in need of services or a victim of crime, we try to get them the services that are appropriate. If an individual violates the law, we try to take appropriate enforcement action. That being said, Riverside's had some issues over the past 3 years, and council requested some numbers from the last 3 years. Over the last 3 years, we've had 200 incidents at Riverside Plaza. 43 of these were police self-initiated incidents and basically traffic stops, security checks, investigative follow-ups, warrant service, that sort of thing. In addition to that, there were another 25 false business alarms. That leaves about 132 calls for service that we responded to over a period of 36 months of investigating. That's about 3.6 calls a month. So, and we're looking at, depending on the month, 3 or 4 calls a month to Riverside. These calls have a wide range of variety. 35 were suspicious activity, basically unknown situations. They wanted someone to come over and check folks out. We had 21 disorderly calls. That can range from someone arguing all the way up to actually a physical altercation. 13 complaints of trespass and 11 of citizens requesting assistance, 11 thefts. And then there's a bunch of other ones that are only a couple calls throughout: loitering, assault, harassment, public intoxication, welfare checks. We had 2 complaints of prostitution, 1 drug-related incident, and a few other miscellaneous calls. During this time frame, we made 18 arrests, 12 of them were for warrant services. One of the biggest complaints that the owners have at Riverside is the congregation of folks on their property and disrupting their business. You know, they want these folks to stay off their property. And, so what do we do normally as a police response to that? We increase our presence. We take appropriate enforcement action when a crime occurs in our presence. We try to help the property owners bar individuals from the property if that's what they'd like to do. One of the important things we have to recognize is the property owners are responsible for the management of the property. We can help them, but they're responsible for management. We can't determine who has the right to be on private property, but we can certainly help the owners with who they want on the property. When we deal with these issues in the city with individuals that are congregated on property, it's basically 2 types of properties. One of them is a single owner, and the single owner has probably the easiest situation that we deal with, because the owner has property rights across his property. So what can they do? They can give a verbal warning for those folks to leave the property and not come back. They can give them written notice. We actually have a template on our website. If the individual refuses to leave or returns after notification, the property owner can then petition the magistrate for warrants and try to make a criminal charge. So I guess the question is, how can we partner with property owners, and how have we partnered with property owners? Well, we encourage them, if they're uncomfortable talking to folks on the property, asking folks to leave, they can certainly call us and we'll stand by with them while they tell those folks for safety considerations. We can help identify individuals if they want to try to serve a written notice. And in certain cases, when it's appropriate, we may even be able to take enforcement action if the individual refuses to leave in our presence. And of course, we'll serve the warrants if any warrants are issued. We can do service in Waynesboro. The second type of property is an owner-tenant property, where you have an owner, like at Riverside, that owns a shopping center, and within that shopping center, you have individual renters, and those tenants have property rights. The owner still has property rights, but they're limited to a certain degree by the tenants who are renting the property and control of the property. when we go to these folks' property and they want to do something about people hanging out on their property, it requires organization between the owner and the tenants for common goal. There's a couple different ways to do that. Some decide to designate a property manager for the property, and this can be accomplished through rental agreements, written agreements, that sort of thing, and we encourage folks to seek legal counsel. The other way to do it is common goals and practices between the owners and tenants. The owner can manage the communal areas and the tenants kind of manage their stores and the entranceways. But again, the tenants, want somebody on that property, they're paying rent to have someone on that property. And then they have the right to have that person on the property unless there's something in the lease or some legality that allows the owner to step in. The mechanics of moving individuals from these types of properties are the same thing. It's a verbal warning. They can issue written notices in certain circumstances. And again, we've got the template on the website. And again, if they refuse to leave, they can petition for warrants. And of course, we can stand by and do the same things we can with the single property owner. We also encourage those folks and other property owners, business property owners, to post no trespassing signs after business hours. And we can help monitor the property after everything closes down during the night and help watch out for the property when they do that. And that gives us some recourse to deal with folks that come on the property after business hours. Now, what have we had done specifically with Riverside Plaza? I spoke to Mr. Skillman in the latter part of September. And at that time, he was in the process of becoming the property manager for all the tenants. Meanwhile, we increased our presence. We made several arrests, and we've got several drug charges pending as a result of our increased presence. These arrests, I might add, did not include homeless individuals. I followed up with Mr. Skillman again on the 14th of October, and he advised that he had finished getting the permission from all of these tenants, and he was now properly authorized to manage the entire property. Since then, we've responded to help him with delivery of written notices and remove people from the property on several occasions. And we continue to work with Mr. Skillman, and we're committed to working with Riverside Plaza to mitigate their problems. I'd like to make a couple comments regarding the homeless issues in Waynesboro. There are several groups of individuals living in Waynesboro, and they typically they're camping on private property. During hot, cold, and other inclement weather, these individuals, they'll sometimes seek out shelter at local businesses. Sometimes it appears that they just come to local businesses just to hang out. This creates some of the trespassing issues that we are experiencing. But when you look at Valley Mission in Stanton, which is one of the places we send folks to, they typically can handle 120 people. Now they're down to 42 capacity because of COVID considerations, and of those 42 spaces, they're all full. The warm shelter has 40 rooms in Verona, and all of those are currently full. I spoke with Valley Community Services Board. They handle the placement for both services. They currently have 70 households from our locality and surrounding area on the waiting list for these limited places. Now that's 70 households, that's not 70 people. A household could be comprised of one person, but it also could be comprised of several folks. Valley Community Services Board also estimated that we probably have about 45 people in Waynesboro that are awaiting housing. They have other housing assistance available, and they have the money for rental properties, but they're experiencing difficulties finding rental properties in order to house these folks. So at the end of the day, we don't have anywhere for these folks to go. We refer them to the shelters, and then they have to go on a waiting list. So that's kind of where we're at with the homeless population, and that's kind of what we do for the businesses. And again, we're committed to businesses you know, having an environment that they can do well in, so. That's all I have.
Thank you, Captain Oliver, appreciate it.
Anybody have questions for Captain Oliver? I have one, JW. In your dealings with these, are these local people that are homeless? Are these transients coming through the area? Or
It's a mixed bag.
you can take that off if it's bothering you.
Thank you. It's getting hard to breathe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a mixed bag. Some folks are transient, some folks are local. And the population sometimes changes.
Captain Oliver, if we, some of the property down there has been called like Tent City, the east side of the river. My understanding, as long as the owner of that property allows them to come there, you can't do anything about it unless it becomes a health issue.
Yeah, as long as it's private, they're on private property. No, we don't go on and police private property. We expect folks that own the property to manage their property, but we're certainly willing to partner with them if they have people that are trespassing on their property when folks move away.
Thank you, JW.
Some of those instances too, it's a matter of the zoning classification, whether or not, you know, there would be appropriate zoning, or whether or not folks could habitat those properties that serve the purpose of residential purpose or an outdoor living purpose.
I didn't hear you.
I should wrap up by saying thanks for that update. It's very helpful. I think our community benefits from open and honest, and transparent assessment. So thank you. Captain Oliver.
All right, that brings us to item number 14, which is our citizen comment period. I just want to remind folks that signed up to speak tonight. You're giving us information. We're not going to be answering questions. We're not going to be responding back to you as a council. If you want to meet with a council member or talk to a council member, you can either catch us after the meeting or shoot us an email, and we'll sit down and have a chat over what you want, whatever you want to chat about. But tonight is just simply us gathering information from you. When you come up to speak, you'll have 4 minutes to speak, and there's a little light in front of the podium here, red, yellow, and green. You'll have a green light for about 3.5 minutes. It'll turn yellow, and then when it turns red at 4 minutes, we ask that you be wrapped up and done with your part of the citizen comment. So with that, Mr. Hamp.
Yes, sir. Jamie Harris.
Oh, and if you don't mind, please state your name and address.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Jamie Harris, and I live at 1400 B Street in Waynesboro. I'm just concerned of why chickens and roosters are our main concern, you know, in the city of Waynesboro. There are more pressing matters to be looked at. Some people don't like the sounds of roosters crowing in their neighborhoods, excuse me. But what about the sound of someone hitting a pothole at 3 a.m. and waking you up and makes it sound like it's coming through your front door? I mean, that's a little bit more pressing than a chicken or a rooster crowing, I believe. You see the homeless people, as it's already been addressed, living across from the Greenway on Shiloh Avenue. I don't like the sound of cars coming by my house at 3 a.m., at 2 o'clock in the day, 9 a.m., blaring their music, or at nighttime when my children are trying to sleep. What is done about that? Nothing. It still happens. There's fireworks being currently let off near my house for the past week. While I agree with some of the items in the 50-page proposal, I don't agree with 14.2 or 14.9, number 2. In the case you don't know, roosters protect their coops, their hens from predators, skunks, possums, rats, and etc. I have raised my chickens from an incubator. I have had Wolfie, whom is my 5-year-old named his rooster, since he was a baby chick, since he hatched out of an egg. These chickens are my pets, and they are a part of my family and provide eggs to my family. And to think that the city council can just give them a date to be gone by is crazy, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, Do we know how many chickens and roosters are in Waynesboro? And how many legit filed complaints have you had? And that's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am.
Craig Scott.
Good evening, hardworking and honorable stewards of our fair city. I hope you all are well. As I mentioned, or in the item, I'm concerned about water quality, as we all are, among other things. You have a myriad of items to deal with, hundreds of things in your own personal life and running our city. One that has probably fallen through the cracks you might not realize, and I know it's not deliberate, is that we are poisoning our citizens, pets, whatever, including our rivers. And the solution is incredibly simple and will save the city money. It's stop fluoridation of our water. It's a industrial waste. It is a toxin. It is also known that there's two types that are distributed to water treatment, and it should only be used as a topical solution. That would be sodium fluoric acid and fluoric acid. These are toxins. They cause carcinogens, damage soft organs, glands, fluorosis, which deforms bones, lowers IQs, and has an effect of dulling people in their alertness, much the way a poison like nicotine would with cigarettes, where it calms you down. But it's an effect from a toxin. So I would recommend that the city, the simple solution, would actually save some money. You know me, I like to be efficient and a positive person, a win-win, is stop putting it in. It also affects the creatures in the runoff. We are blessed with some of the finest water in the world from our ancient mountains here and aquifers with the rich in calcium and other important minerals, but this is a toxin. And I gave everybody a white paper. It's only 10 pages, I got a shorter one. The studies have been done, hundreds, if not thousands of studies have been done in every corner of the globe, from every city. I think that particular study was done in Egypt, but it's valid for everybody. We're all humans, and whatever you do is fine. But so I would urge the council to look at it. If you have any more questions, I'd be happy to assist in any way. And we talked to the plant manager. All we have to do is stop putting it in the water, save the city some money, and maybe we'll have some smarter kids too. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Craig.
Terry Kent.
Terry Kent, 408 Loudon Avenue. I appreciate Craig caring so much about our city that he speaks every meeting. I come for two short reasons. First of all, I want to congratulate the present Commissioner of Revenue on winning the Excellence Award. Number two, I've come to recognize the traffic problem we have here in Waynesboro. When you turn off of West Main Street on the Holtman Parkway, it quickly goes from 2 lanes to 1, and I've almost been sideswiped there 5 times this the last few months. So I would appreciate Waynesboro looking into that. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kent.
Amber Lipscomb.
Good evening, Amber Lipscomb, 1628 Monroe Street. I want to thank you first for pushing the chicken animal issue into January. I appreciate being able to come to the public meeting in the work session and be able to have input in that after. So I want to appreciate that, but I also wanted to give you some of my input, and then you will be hearing from me throughout the coming months as well. First things, I noticed that we have a commercial use tractor supply. I did not see anything in the new presentation about the difference between residential and commercial use for chickens, because the commercial use, they will have roosters. So how will we handle those situations as well? They will have more than 10. They have them for months. Okay, so I just wanted to put that into your perspective. Also, the 10 feet property lines, it's very hard for individuals to pick up and move very heavy coops. So I want you to take a look at that, because in your description, if you even are missing our 10-foot property line, you can get your class 4 misdemeanor. So me, as a public teacher and a mother of 2, I cannot see my children for 30 days and a $250 fine just for not having that 10-foot distance based on what you currently have on there. Because it said any of these that are not met, you can get that class 4 misdemeanor. So I wanted to put that into your forefront as well, because I feel like we are intentionally criminalizing citizens of Waynesboro that otherwise would not be criminals, okay? Because Waynesboro is a sanctuary city for birds. Last thing I heard, chicken is still a bird, okay? And I also wanted to bring up something of public view, okay? And this has come to me personally, and I wanted to share it to you because people know that I come to these meetings and will share. Personally, people know that a member on this committee has had an issue with chickens in their area and has brought this to your attention a few years ago. I didn't have chickens then, so I didn't know, but it's on my radar now. And now we are coming to criminalizing some of our citizens, and this is coming from a member of a community, not intentionally, but it looks like intentionally possibly criminalizing a neighbor due to where their position of power lies. So I just wanted to put that into your forefront as well. From a public perspective, it looks a little harsh, okay? And going back to supply issue, our Washington Post said the supply chain issue is going to dive deep into 2020. So I need to know that I can have my rooster to supply me my next generation, to supply my family eggs, that I have tagged you all in Facebook that there was none on the shelves before, 0 frozen chicken on the shelves before. So I know I'm providing a meal for my family on that issue alone. We are not Dr. Fauci's paying experiments of using acid to destroy parts of monkey brains that just came out in the news. We are our average citizens just trying to love Waynesboro and make it safe. And that's what I have to say. I'll talk to you more throughout the month.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
Evelyn Cotton.
I wonder, could I speak back again and take less time that way? This else is on the agenda.
Okay. Kim Williams.
I would like to call him. You should have arrived, right? Yeah.
Kurt Lilly.
Good evening, Kurt Lilly, 218 Skyland. A FOIA request showed that most of the complaints regarding animals are coming from 3 people. Now you are using these 3 people as an excuse to take away the liberties of over 20,000 residents. For me, this is about liberty. People showed up at these meetings overwhelmingly opposed to this ordinance, but you keep bringing it up. This isn't a big city, and that's why we are here. We don't want to be like a big city. I like the crow of roosters in the morning, and I value Waynesboro's rural charm. It's currently popular to source food locally, as has been mentioned earlier, and this ordinance prevents people from doing just that. We want to be more self-sufficient, not less. So, in wrapping up, I can save you the time of studying this very long ordinance over the holidays. Just reject it. We don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lilly.
Wayne Nolte.
I'm Wayne Nolte. I'm here to represent the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Waynesboro, which is located at 565 Pine Avenue. This is in regard to the current design plans for the Greenway Trail Phase 3. As you're aware from my previous emails, we're very concerned that the effect of the removal of parking on the north side of 14th Street as part of these plans will have a great effect on our ability to remain a viable institution. as most of our members are older and cannot walk long distances from their parking spot to our facility. Many members park on 14th Street and Pine Avenue, as well as our own on-site parking. Reducing on-street parking will also impact our ability to grow in the future. I held a meeting on October 24th with local residents who have additional concerns, as you will soon hear, regarding the Greenway Trail Phase 3. Based on the currently available public hearing design plans, which I attended and provided comments at. I'll be summarizing the comments from that meeting in the near future. I'm here tonight to ask you to delay taking any action on those plans until we have time to work with your planning department and VDOT, and I've been in communication with both of them, to find a better solution for that Greenway Trail Phase 3. We are aware of all the work that Waynesboro has put into this Greenway plan, and I certainly support the Greenway in general and dedicated bike lines in general. I've biked across the country, so I know very much the difference between biking on a road like 254 with little paved shoulder and a greenway that's isolated from traffic. We do, however, feel like the 14th Street location and current plans have a lot of issues that need to be worked out, our primary concern being the parking. If the alignment cannot be reversed back to the previous alignment, which I've been on both, and I really think the previous alignment is much better as a bicyclist, then please consider that the current funding is Highway Safety Improvement Program, not the original Transportation Assistance Act funding. If you want to make it safer for pedestrians, don't put them on a steep hill with bicyclists. Improve the sidewalks that you have on 14th Street. Improve the intersection at Arch and Wayne Avenue. What you have on the smart portal, which is what the public sees if they go to that, is all about the original Rife Road location. Is this merely an oversight that the portal hasn't been updated? I don't know, but there's nothing that I could find that talks about 14th Street. Please give us a chance to work this out. As you know from my letter, it only gets worse if you go into the construction phase without having worked out things. I spent 20 years at VDOT, both in design and construction, and I can tell you it's much worse in the construction phase. So in closing, I would say that people are going to use the Rife Road previous location. They're not going to go up 14th Street. You're going to spend $1 million for nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Cotton?
Good evening, I'm Evelyn Cotton. I reside at 720 14th Street along the proposed path of the Greenway Phase 3. I just wanted to add a couple of things. I know you guys are going to be in working sessions on this, obviously if it's coming up in November. I was at the meeting, and one of the things we discussed is that the further in time we get from our original plan, which started on Rife Road, the more unrealistic our cost estimates are. And I'm going to suggest that it might be worth considering a scale back. I'm in full support of the sidewalk plan as a good beginning point, but I would suggest if the grant money that we have, I'm not sure what the restrictions are on that, but I know our proposed Greenway plan states the purpose and need is to improve pedestrian safety in the city of Waynesboro. And it doesn't specifically say anything about parks and greenways. In the additional description, we get that we want it to be a connector between those two. So I'm not sure how tied the money is to having to be tied to a greenway, and where, as opposed to just pedestrian safety in general. So I want to suggest that if the grant funds are broad enough, it would really be worth considering improving pedestrian safety by, number one, we know we were looking at wanting to maybe long-term, our goal is to funnel traffic, foot traffic more, pedestrian traffic more up 14th Street. So start with the sidewalks, and then also consider if we made all or most of those intersections between the numbered and the tree streets on 14th Street, if those all became four-way stops, most of the through traffic is going to divert over to 13th, which is way wider and has far less foot traffic, can better handle, it's less steep hill, I think, can better handle the traffic, and only your residential traffic that lives on 14th or near it is going to be using it if there's that many stop signs. It's just going to naturally happen that way. Another option would be to consider putting speed bumps in. Not sure truly how effective that is, but it certainly has some effect. And then another way to improve pedestrian safety in the whole city is to consider putting in crosswalks with traffic light controls, like we have on Main and Wayne downtown, at specific intersections where there's just no crosswalk across the road. One of those would be Wayne and 14th or Wayne and Arch. And I'd suggest, I think there's more foot traffic right there by the library at 14th than there is at Arch. But certainly at least one of those intersections should have a traffic light, and it should have a pedestrian walkway function as well. And then on Rosser, at the intersection with Tiffany by the Martin store and the Walmart, I see people trying to cross that road, and it breaks your heart to see people trying to cross the road and all that traffic. And the speed limit's 45. No one wants to slow down for them. And so that's it's just a matter of time till we have an accident there. That it might be a better word than accident, but it's just a matter of time before there's a tragedy there. So I would suggest those things are worth considering, especially if it's possible to redirect those to general pedestrian safety. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kim Williams.
My name is Kim Williams, and I live at 830 Pine. My daughter, who's with me, lives on the corner of Chestnut and 14th, and she's going to have a child soon. And on her block, there are more than 19 children between the two blocks that come off of 14th. So I'm new to the dance on this Greenway project, but I would like to have some input. The two speakers that came before me talked about some specifics and some statistics. And I don't really want to talk about that. I want to talk about the spirit of the Greenway in Waynesboro. I moved here this spring from the Southwest United States, and there's very little green grass there, and there are very few people who even know what a real river is. So you can imagine how excited I was when I moved to Waynesboro, and I got to walk down the Greenway along that beautiful river, seeing the fishermen, all the families down there enjoying themselves. It was a real pleasure. One of the first things that I did when I went there was to notice the execution of that Greenway was very impressive. It's a wonderful urban space. It's not unlike similar places in Colorado Springs and Tucson that I have visited. There's a little bit of magic in a Greenway space that is well planned. Waynesboro executed this beautifully on their Greenway. A Greenway is a quiet and a secluded place. Its purpose is to provide a safe haven in which to play. This can mean a family that's out walking and talking, spending time together and enjoying nature, as many of the neighbors, my daughter's neighbors do. It can be bicyclers enjoying the outdoors in a space that is safe from the many dangers posed by automobiles. It can mean people walking their dogs after a long day at work. It can mean a place to exercise. A greenway is many different things to many different people. If the goal is to continue this wonderful greenway and connect to Waynesboro's parks, the design plan seems to have missed the mark. That doesn't mean the plan is not good. It means it's not meeting the purpose that it was intended for. Once you introduce vehicular traffic into the plan, the dynamic changes, and it is no longer a greenway. The space is no longer a safe haven in which people can play. The current plan is simply a modified road to connect city parks, but a road nonetheless. It is not a greenway. Much thought was put into this plan. However, a crucial element should have been given more importance. There is no contest between my 5,000-pound car and the 50-pound body of a 4-year-old. A human body on a bicycle will undoubtedly be severely injured, if not killed, by a 26,000-pound delivery truck. Once you introduce vehicular traffic into your greenway and parks plan, the dynamic changes. This is like seeking refuge under a bridge during an earthquake. It isn't going to end well. I understand that losing the funding for this project is not a desirable outcome. What I don't understand is that somehow, in all of the planning efforts put forth for this project, the story of what a greenway is was lost. A greenway is not an asphalt street that carries trash trucks and emergency responders and every type of vehicular traffic on the streets of the city. Is it better to have something than nothing in order to keep the funding? Sometimes it's not, especially if the something is so far from the concept of what was originally intended.
Ms. Williams?
And if the result is something dangerous. Let's get back on the right track for the expansion of Waynesboro's greenway space. Please revisit the idea of what a greenway is intended to be. Thank you
very much. Well, thank you all for your comments tonight, and thank you for coming out to the council meeting. That brings us to item number 14. Do we have a motion to close this meeting? Adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have a second? Thank you, Mr. Short. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all very much.
Yeah.